Hello, and welcome back to the Striha Sports Podcast. My name is Parker Striha, and on today's episode, we're going to be discussing the Green Bay Packers and what I think they should be doing in the future. As always, I am by no means a professional, but I love talking about sports, so thank you for joining me. The Green Bay Packers are undoubtedly one of the most historic NFL franchises ever. They have 4 Super Bowls, and they had 9 league championships before the Super Bowl era even began. They have 3 legendary quarterbacks that'll all be in the Hall of Fame once Aaron Rodgers calls it a career. They have countless memorable moments from Matt Flynn's 6-touchdown game against Detroit to the Hail Mary against Seattle. They also have one of the greatest home field advantages in stadiums in Lambeau Field. They just can't seem to get anything done in the playoffs, however. Whether it's an offensive or defensive meltdown, Green Bay constantly seems to get in their own way. It's frustrating because it seems like Aaron Rodgers would have a great game, and then the defense would allow 30-plus points, or the defense would smother the other team, and Aaron Rodgers would have a bad game. Sadly for Packer fans, the first scenario was all too familiar, as it seemed to be how every playoff loss would go, and every win would be closer than it should be. These last 3 years in the playoffs have been very tough for Green Bay. They've had a lot of close games and some very disappointing losses, but in the last 3 regular seasons, Green Bay has 39 regular season wins. They've won the NFC North 3 straight times while claiming 2 number 1 seeds and 3 first-round byes. Aaron Rodgers also has 1 MVP season in those 3 seasons, with 1 more likely coming this year. But in those playoffs, like I said, Green Bay has been really disappointing, whether winning by less than you'd think they should or disappointing losses. In the 2019-2020 season, Green Bay hosted the Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round of the playoffs and won 28-23, but then would go into San Francisco for the NFC Championship and lose 37-20. The following year, they hosted the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round of the playoffs, but then would once again go to the NFC Championship and lose to the eventual Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-26. The only difference of this year is that Green Bay didn't win in the divisional round, and so they couldn't lose in the NFC Championship. This year, they hosted the San Francisco 49ers and lost 13-10. And what's crazy about that last game is that could have been Aaron Rodgers' last game as a Green Bay Packer. It's just kind of crazy for me because I've grown up watching football, and he's been the quarterback of that team for as long as I can remember. And I mean, he's one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the game of football, and I don't think he gets a lot of credit for that because a lot of media stuff, a lot of people berate him, and just if you mention his name in a headline pretty much, whether it's negative or positive, you're going to get buzz, you're going to get content from him. But with him potentially playing his last game in Green Bay, I don't know if he'll retire or if they'll trade him, but I feel like it could be his last game just because of the discontent between he and the Green Bay Packers. I think a lot of that started during the 2020 NFL Draft when Green Bay actually traded up in the first round to select quarterback Jordan Love, who is thought to be the heir to Aaron Rodgers once he eventually retires. In the little bit he's played, he hasn't been too impressive, but I don't know. I think the couple games he's played, he's been playing against good teams, and he doesn't have a lot of experience in the NFL yet, so there's really not a lot you can say about that when he hasn't played very much. But back to the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, I don't think he's going to retire. I think it's more likely that Green Bay trades him because it was just reported, I think, either last night or this morning that if Green Bay decides to do a partial rebuild or get rid of him, he doesn't want to be a part of that rebuild at all. He wants to be on a team that he can win a Super Bowl on. He wants to compete. But he said he's going to do a lot of thinking and he's going to make a decision on his future before free agency. So in the upcoming months, it's going to be I think the public is going to be very eager to see what he says, especially other teams in the NFC North, because he's kind of tormented them for the last however many years. So it'd be nice for them to see him leave the conference and the division most likely, because if he gets traded, I don't see any way Green Bay keeps him in the NFC, because if they do, they're more likely to play him, and then he's going to probably destroy them, which is what happened when Brett Favre was traded. But going into this offseason, according to Adam Schefter, Green Bay has $45 million over the salary cap, which is not good. That is going to lead to a lot of players getting cut, getting traded, and it's going to be very hard for Green Bay to re-sign some of their key free agents. I actually have a list of some key free agents that I don't think Green Bay will be able to sign that could easily go and be contributors on a lot of teams. Starting out, we have Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard and MVS, 3 of Green Bay's top receivers. with Devontae Adams arguably being the best receiver in the league, depending on who you ask. They have Robert Tonyan, who they lost for the season with a torn ACL. I think they can possibly bring him back just because he got hurt, but it's still going to be very difficult. In the secondary, they have Kevin King, Shannon Sullivan, and Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas is probably the biggest of those three just because the impact he's had on that team this year, lots of interceptions, couple pick sixes, and considering he was signed off of someone's practice squad and then came to Green Bay and balled out, I think it's very likely that he could get a bigger contract than Green Bay can offer him. So I think he will leave, and I know a lot of Green Bay fans want Kevin King gone, but I don't see how they're going to re-sign him. I think they're going to let Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes kind of be their top two corners and kind of let the rest fall into place. They also have Devondre Campbell, who they signed on a very cheap one-year deal at the beginning of the season. A lot of teams kind of counted him out. He wasn't on a roster, which was kind of surprising. And then he came into Green Bay, absolutely balled out. And he also ended up being first team All-Pro this year, which I thought was crazy because you don't really think about those low money, cheap contract guys outplaying and outperforming a lot of these players that you see getting massive contracts. So I think it's very likely that he gets a big contract like Rasul Douglas and isn't able to come back to Green Bay unless he really wants to. And then Lucas Patrick and Dennis Kelly, they're by no means big name offensive linemen, but they started a lot of games, played a lot of games for Green Bay this year. So I think losing that depth in those veterans is going to be very crucial and it's really going to hurt Green Bay, I think, to lose those guys. And then Chris Barnes and Tyler Lancaster on the defensive side of the ball. Green Bay fans should be a little bit more worried about losing Chris Barnes just because of the lack of depth and production at the inside linebacker position in Green Bay. Chris Barnes, as an undrafted rookie out of UCLA, I believe, last year, he's been really solid for Green Bay, so I don't think they want to let him go, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't offer him a contract because I feel like Green Bay is one of those teams that really doesn't value that inside linebacker position, and I think he could easily get a contract somewhere else. Those are free agents that Green Bay has, and then I also have a list of players who I believe could be cut or traded this offseason. All of these players have 1 year left on their deal, and they are all veteran players, key contributors to Green Bay, and there's Aaron Rodgers, Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, Billy Turner, Dean Lowry, Preston Smith, Za'Darius Smith, Adrian Amos, and Mason Crosby. I think Mason Crosby especially, it's kind of sad because he's a Green Bay legend. He's been there since 2007, and then this year fans are kind of calling for his head because of missed field goals, missed PATs. It'll be kind of sad to see him go, but I can see him retiring just because he is getting a little bit older. I know kickers can kind of play until they're, 40, however old Adam Vinatieri played, but a lot of those players I can see getting cut, but I can also see guys like Za'Darius Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos all getting traded for, just because I think those are the guys that have value, or the most value that Green Bay can get out of them. Out of that list, I believe Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis, Billy Turner, Randall Cobb, and Preston Smith will all be cut, but I do believe Za'Darius Smith, Adrian Amos, Dean Lowry, and Aaron Rodgers all have the potential to be traded, but I do believe that Rodgers will be the only one off that list that actually does get traded. And speaking of Aaron Rodgers trades, I do have a couple that I came up with that I would like to get everyone's opinions on. So the first one, I have Green Bay trading Aaron Rodgers to the Denver Broncos. In exchange for Aaron Rodgers, Denver will give up a 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick, a 2023 second-round pick, a 2024 first-round pick, along with Bradley Chubb and Jerry Jeudy. The next trade, I have Green Bay trading Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh for a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 second-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick, and a 2024 first-round pick, along with wide receiver Chase Claypool. And the third and final trade I have is Aaron Rodgers being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders for a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 third-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick, Derek Carr, and Jonathan Abram. Now, following players getting traded and cut or not re-signed, I think the next thing Green Bay has to do is they have to offer an extension. They have to re-sign Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage. Make sure you keep those guys in-house, and along with Elton Jenkins, keep all three of those guys there because they're all three still young and they can be building blocks for the next, I won't say the next dynasty, but the last however many years has been that core group of players, and I think these guys can be really crucial to a potential Green Bay Super Bowl run in the future, however long that takes. I'm not really sure how it's going to go. Like I said, I'm not a professional. This is all just speculation. But as always, I'm your host, Parker Striha, and this has been the Striha Sports Podcast. Thank you for joining me today.